Hey, it's Joey Balladonna here from Anthrax, and this is SAGAS.
Well,
Look, this is a big one.
I didn't break out and join the podcast today.
It is now time for Devil's Advocate. Same time, same place, for something.
What's going on, everybody? This is Corbin, the Serpentine Skipwith.
And this is Ren, the Berserker Marabou. And this is...
SAGAS.
Woo!
What a fun time. If you guys obviously are aware, last week, because this is next week's, but last week we did a special episode, Grease karaoke, real fun time, short but sweet. Again, for the final time, rest in peace, Olivia Newton. So we're back to a normal schedule as we promised, and this week, as I said last week, I wanted to cover an album that was a personal favorite of mine from a band that discovered it only a few years back, but they've made an impact on me on how I listen to music, the kind of my taste, how they've evolved. And I think this band is a real key piece to all that. And that is Swans and their 10th album, The Soundtrack to the Blind, or For the Blind. I always get confused. Soundtrack for the Blind version. Yeah, anyway. Soundtrack for the Blind, their 10th album. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, this is your first time listening to any Swans album. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I've not heard anything, I don't think.
So the question for you, which I've been dying to find out, or trust me, guys, I've been messaging him all day, 7 days. He hasn't told me shit. So the question can finally be answered. Ren, the time is yours. How did you? What was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was, holy fuck, what is this? It was, I tell you, man, I knew it was going to be a strange one because, you kind of hinted at it, but I didn't realize that it was going to be probably the strangest album I've ever heard in my life. Right. So first off the bat, I'm just like, this is crazy, man. This is so weird. And it's like, it's not like it's overpowering for the senses, but it's just so strange, So the word I came when I listened through the whole album, which is a very long album, the only thing I could think of was hypnotic or soundscape. So I was like, hypnoscape, I think is the only way to describe this album. Hypnoscape. Yeah.
It's interesting because as someone who has dived deep into their whole discography by this point. I mean, I've listened to their first few albums, their latest, everything in between. And what's strange, and what might be strange to someone who's not familiar with Swans, is that this album was a 10-year. This album started a 10-year hiatus for the band, and then they came back in 2010 with another album. But what's crazy is they're actually hitting their peak performance albums in their later. So their most recent albums, which is actually, a lot of people call it a 3-part trilogy, an album trilogy. You have The Seer, To Be Kind, and The Glowing Man. And then there was a 4th album that didn't fit that trilogy, but which is now on Bandcamp. But they only get stranger with time, and I know that must be hard for you to imagine, considering you just listen to this. But I chose this album because it is, to a lot of people, their magnum opus. Even though their latest work has been absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, let me just start by saying that the reason I chose this album, besides the overwhelming response of it being the magnum opus, is that this is, and I know I harp on it a lot over the SAGAS, and I think I said it probably most on the Sano episode, but I love a band. I appreciate a band most, a band that can understand how to utilize patience. And Swans, and not just this album, throughout their whole discography, they've learned to master, inherit, and evolve the art of patience, which a lot of people don't take that in consideration. They don't. If you're a band, most bands are like, why would we need that? Just play the music, whatever. But Swans, as you can tell from this album, it's a very long album. It's a double album, and there are plenty of tracks on here that are over 10 minutes long. And I love how they just utilize every second. They draw out every second. They don't care about time. Time is nothing to them. They're not on the linear scale like we are. They're just like, fuck it, we'll make an album. And you know, Strange can't even begin to discover. They're like, this album, when I first heard it, I'm pretty sure it gave me nightmares, and it continues to give me nightmares because yeah, there's just so much going on in this album, and from sound bites, you know, clips of people talking, interviews that mostly are unresolved. So it's like pretty creepy that they just leave it hanging there. But yeah, I just want to say first off the bat that like I've listened to this album, I swear 50 times over my life so far, and every time I listen to it, I discover something new. I pick out something new that I haven't heard before, or a certain way that I haven't heard it being played before. And I think it just goes into the genius of a band that has redefined over its 20 plus year career what it means to be experimental, at least in the art of metal or rock.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Like it is experimental to the utmost. It's you know, it's the kind of album that you don't listen to it. You kind of have to feel it, you know. So I you know me, I like to sit down, chill out, and meditate to the sounds and stuff. And there was quite a few times in this album, especially the opening track, Red Velvet Corridor, that really set that nicely for me, man. I was like, geez, if I didn't have to concentrate this now, I'd just sit there and meditate to this on repeat and, you know, end up not doing any work. Just end up falling asleep in a deep meditation. But there's so much more to it than just, you know, ethereal sort of sounds. There's really raw rhythm, like really abrasive textures. Like it's just like it's really what would you say? It's like I've probably said this word already, but I'm gonna say it a million times over this course of this podcast. Visceral power. It's like out of nowhere, you just get this boom, this big whack of sound. And it doesn't last long. You know, they don't. It's not overbearing, like I said. Like it's really interesting. Like but like I said, you have to feel it, you know. And I think what I came away from this album was I realized that it's not really an album of songs; it's an album of sounds. And there's an interesting stylistically, there's an approach called sound collage or a montage, a sound montage. So it's like if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's like if you can imagine a movie montage where you get all these little clips, yeah, like Rocky and stuff, yeah. Put that into like a sound kind of version, and like but you're layering it and layering it and layering it, and it just makes this noise that melodically doesn't fit together, but it just makes this like hypnotic kind of trance type sound. And that's used throughout this entire album, and it's hard to do. It sounds, oh, you're just throwing sounds on top of each other, but it's not. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to get any DJ will know this. It's hard to get even two songs that are perfectly mastered and mixed to sit together. It's just too much for the senses. But they really done a great job of layering these sounds and loops. I never heard as many loops on an album before as well. And it was like it's not like, I don't know, it's like they don't they overuse it and they don't underuse it. It's just it's the perfect amount of loops. Like it's crazy. It's a really interesting approach to songwriting, and composing is more what I would call it than songwriting. I just thought it was great. Like and I you know, I delved into the band's history and stuff, and like I knew nothing about the band except for hearing you mentioned Swans. But it was interesting to me that they started back in like '82. So, you know, that's a long time to be making this. And if you're to saying now that they've gone even crazier into and more progressive or more, you know, larger on their stuff than this, I'm very impressed. I can't you know, I will definitely listen to the, especially Seer. That sounds really interesting to me because, you know, Norse mythology and seers and magic and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what else they have.
Well, for a little perspective, especially talking about the Seer album, there's a track on the Seer album that is 42 minutes long.
Oh fuck.
And then the album after that, To Be Kind, there's a song that's 35 minutes long.
Wow.
And then the album after that, 20 plus minutes. Like they're insane. But you know, what's interesting is, especially on this album, which is, because obviously for this podcast, I did some extra digging, some fresh research on it that I normally don't do, and turns out that like because Michael Gira, he's the head of the snake of this thing, and what a disturbed man he must be. It really like every time I listen to this band, I think because he's the head of he's the mastermind of it all, and like I think like that's a disturbing fact to have one dude in charge of it. Like, I mean, obviously the band plays this shit, but like he's the mastermind. It's just like every time I listen to his Swans album, I'm like, you should be put in an asylum. But at the same time, I love that you're free because you get to make shit like this. But speaking of Michael Gara, apparently this album is filled with like songs from different time periods, as in like 80s, 90s, early 90s, late 80s, oh sorry, early 80s, late 80s. Like it's a bunch of different, as well as the time period 1996. So apparently he said that this album almost broke him, that it almost drove him insane because there was so much material, so much sampling, so much stuff to work through that he almost couldn't finish it. So, I mean, it is a long album, so I can't imagine all the stuff he had to source through. And then he ended up apparently jokingly saying that he probably made this album just so he can throw away most of his old shit, like old samples and old songs and old like old physical vinyls. So use it, throw it away. So apparently he's like it's probably an excuse for that. But there's just so much to be said about this album. Like for example, the one track that always gets me like is the second track, "I Was a Prisoner in Your Skull," for a few reasons. First of all, towards the back end, I don't know why. I don't know why this always gives me chills, but it does. It doesn't matter if I'm listening to it in broad daylight, at nighttime, anywhere in between. I still get chills. Is when there's like three quarters into the track before the actual vocal part. There's this a cappella flute or whatever it is, a cappella something, playing for like 10 seconds, and then it's just like so creepy. I don't know why. It's just so creepy, like to hear it a cappella. It's kind of like if you remember on a lot of the old Korn albums, they used to have like slowed down kind of chopped and screwed bagpipes, and that was real creepy. I don't know why it was creepy, but it was creepy. But it's the same thing. It's the same kind of effect. And then this voice comes in, which, as I mentioned earlier, to my knowledge, hasn't been identified by the band, which is fucking. It's just like you just have this random dude talking about. I'm assuming he's insulting blind people because he keeps saying like, here's how you're more fucked up than me, and he's like, you have your dinner, your breakfast ready, or your eggs, and then he's like, but you need my help to use a fork and knife, like. So, and then it just cuts off in the last example, like, get into your car, and then he just stops. And it's just like so much eerie things in this album. And like another thing to point out is on the third track, "Helpless Child." Another example of why I think they're so badass of a band is because the track is 15 minutes and 47 seconds long, but yet 6 minutes into the track, it just goes straight instrumental, the same looping sound. And it's just like, I'm not saying it's a perfect track, but like just the mentality of Michael Gara to be like, you know what, I'm gonna do this as long as I want. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, he doesn't care about anyone else but himself in that moment or the band. And I just think, even though it may not be my favorite track, I think it's a testament to like just how much patience they have, how much time does not matter at all to them. They just make what they want to make. And as I said before, like a few seconds ago, like, present day, they have songs that are 45 minutes. So they don't give a fuck about time. But it's just like, it's like an example here where it really shines like how much dedication they have to just making what they want to make. They're not rushed. Like, they don't care about anyone's time but their own. And for some reason, I always appreciate a band that does that. Bands like Sun O, bands like Godspeed You Devil's Thunder, Godspeed You Black Emperor, Swans, bands that just take their time to make something really outerworldly. That's really all you can describe the kind of band's music. And so I think this may have been the first Swans album I discovered And since then, I've just fell in love with these guys because they provide a niche of experimental music that you just don't hear anywhere else.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like even just quickly going back over those first three songs you mentioned. I mean, it's like I said, you're totally just relaxing, chilled, ethereal, meditative kind of vibe off the first track to that creepy voice talking about how people are this particular subset of people. I didn't pick up on who it was, like you. Maybe you listened to it a bit closer than I did, but you know, about people being fucked up and or this particular person being fucked up. It was creepy, man. It was really creepy. Yeah, I think it's like a kazoo or something that's playing in the background by itself, or but it's played really roughly. Like it's not even, you know, when you're in a studio, usually you try to be really precise, and that's what you think is, you know, the correct thing to do. But it's really interesting that he could hear whoever was playing it deliberately played it wrong, or played it weakly or bad. It was really cool, but it really sounded awesome. But that talking voice is creepy, and then on to Helpless Child, which you know what stood out for me on that song was it's quite spaghetti western kind of feel to it, kind of smooth, kind of cool. But then his voice on that track, it's the first time you hear his voice on the record, Michael's voice, and it's really cool. It's like Nick Cave-esque kind of low and smooth, and I don't know, it's just really cool. And then the track just picks up then. Um it's interesting how, we're always chatting about how important it is to listen to an album from start to finish because a band specifically puts songs where they put them. And to get the full scope of the album is the only way to really to listen to it. But this, the huge drums really, and that big kind of intense guitar stuff builds then into the fourth track here, uh, Live Through Me, which drops it down a bit to an acoustic guitar. You know, it's got this crazy loop, synth loop, and then it goes into this, like this. The only way to describe the acoustic guitar coming in, it's like it morphs in, like it's beautifully mixed. It's actually one of the nicest things I've heard on a record. In a mixing fashion, like there's it's a short one, but it's just an interesting track, and then it kicks into like Yam Yab Killers, which is like a live
I've,
track. I don't know if you know it. Is it live on stage or is it
yeah,
live in the studio?
pretty sure it's
Live
live.
on
Yeah.
stage. Yeah, right. And that just to me has like a total Sonic Youth vibe, but like way more aggressive. It's like Sonic Youth on a pissed off day kind of thing. Like, and like Sonic Youth of the time were such a huge band and very influential. But yeah, the lyrics were dark. Now blow your brains out, away, away, oh, blow your brains out. It's just the feral delivery on that. I don't even know who's doing the vocals. Is it
Michael.
Michael or is it Jabo, his wife?
I'm not really. I'm
I,
going to assume
I didn't.
Michael, but could be.
Yeah, I assume Michael, but it's because it's so feral. It's just and quite high register, so I wasn't sure. I'll have to look into that one. But yeah, no, I just thought it was really cool. But that brings me on to I found out that Jabo, the female vocals on this album, is his wife, and he brought her into the band in 1985. And like you said, Michael's the man behind the pulling all the strings. But him and his wife are the only ones that have been kind of in the band that are still in the band. Am I right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's really interesting because they have a good combination. She brings a lot of synth stuff into it, and which adds to the layers of craziness and the ethereal stuff. And her voice is so eerie. It's beautiful. I'll talk more about that later on, but really cool. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting how the album flows, and then on to track six, that with the kids singing on it, which is usually creepy, right? But this is actually kind of sweet. And I was expecting it to be creepy, because the album's creepy. You'd expect the children singing to be kind of a horror movie esque, but it was actually really sweet. So I don't know, that kind of took me by surprise.
Well, I mean, what's creepy about that song is like the end vocal snippet.
Oh yeah.
Dude, like who I assume is like a sex talker. I mean, a phone call sex talker, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you listen to them masturbate," just like saying disgusting. Like he really did handpick the most fucked
Yeah.
up things to put on this album. It's just like, and I must think like this husband and wife must be like the Harley Quinn and Joker. It must be just like absolute mental cases. But I mean, no offense if they ever watch this, like you guys are legends. But I'm just saying, like, no normal person makes this album. Is my
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what I find funny is like on the song Volcano, it's this like creepy pop song. It's like creepy, like I don't know, like electronic dance song.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like I can't confirm this, but I kind of feel it's meant to be like kind of like an introspective, like fucked up version, like kind of a chopped and screwed version of what a pop song
Yeah.
would sound like if you're on acid. That's all I can imagine. But it's pretty crazy. And then yeah, it's just like, you know, so many vocal snippets that just I feel kind of point towards suffering and blindness. You have that guy talking about how he lost vision in his eye and how he got like a disease, and then you have the woman talking about how she's in pain, and then someone's talking to her, oh, can you feel it now? Does it hurt when you breathe? Yeah, kind of like it's just like so personal. Like, where does he get this shit from? Like you know, was he the one recording intrusively in their house? Like it's just like, I mean, I wouldn't put it past the guy. He's a mad genius for a reason, I guess. But it's just like, you know, what's interesting is if you go back to listen to their first few albums, they actually start their career off as like sludge metal, kind of like I Hate God type vibe. And their first two albums are like that, and then the more and more their career spans, the more they go into experimental territory. And then this album came out in '96, and then 10-year hiatus, and then from there on till now, it's just been experimental. But it's just crazy because like they've covered so many genres. Even on this album, it's hard to pinpoint because you can't wrap this album up into one genre. It's impossible because there's just so many. But you know, that's why the consensus is just experimental because no one knows to call it. But there's so many elements. There's sludge. There's fucking hardcore punk on that song, that live song. Ambient. You've got fucking, you know, spaghetti, as you said on that one song. You got post rock. You've got so many different sounds on here, and they know Michael and the band and his wife. They know how to mix it, as you said, perfectly. They know how to play everything amazingly. It's just like you could tell they were going for a theme here, and whether that theme was about blindness or not, I'm not. But I'm just assuming based on the album cover, based on the title. But they purposely used all this material from different years, not even the same year, to give you a real creepy sense. Like, you know, I can't. Like I told Ren on Messenger, like one time I did fall asleep to this on my headphones, and like I was too tired to turn it off. I was like, fuck it, whatever. And then I had the worst nightmares. I like sleep paralysis. It was like the worst experience of my life. And I was like, oh, never again am I doing this shit. So it's like they're purposely, and like Michael Gara, you know, I kind of get as far as his lyricism goes, I kind of get a combination of like you said, like a Nick Cave kind of Corey Taylor is in terms of mysterious, cryptic as Corey Taylor can be, but yet emotionally driven as a Nick Cave can be. And it's just like, but obviously a lot more twisted, turned up by like 11. But I'm just saying those two elements of those songwriters combined together, you know, in this harrowing fucking experimental album. It's and you know, as I said, the more you go into the discography from here, this is just a sign of things to come because they just get worse and worse. Like, for example, on the album To Be Kind, there's I think 9-minute track. I forgot how long it is, but there's like a 9-minute track, I think, of what I can only describe as a song about someone, a song about the elite torturing Pinocchio. That's all it sounds like because there's this, you can hear laughing in the background, like Rich laughing, and then you hear this kid screaming, "I'm a real boy," I'm a boy. It's just like fucking hell. Like you have no bound. Like it's just yeah. So all I'm saying is, as fucked up as this album is, it really he just pushed it further and further, and I just love how this is considered by so many listeners, so many metalheads, so many music lovers as a magnum opus masterpiece because he pushed the boundaries, especially in '96, pushed the boundaries of what music should be, of what metal should be, and I just can't thank him enough for that because it's just like it opened my eyes to a different kind of music taste and a different kind of subgenre, as if you will, metal. And like I said, to this day, I haven't, you know, there's nothing quite like Swans out there because they just do their own little morbid thing. And really, you know, as far as experimental goes, there's very few bands that can match their kind of specific aesthetic.
Yeah, man, it really is like it's a very unique sound, and it's interesting because even looking at the lineup of who made this record, it's huge, man. It's a huge list of people, and even as far as I've never seen this on an album before, it's mixed and recorded, mixed and recorded, mixed, mastered and recorded, mixed and recorded by so many different people. It's like you've got a guy called Larry Lane mixed and recorded. You've got Billy Anderson, Chris Griffin, Martin Boise. You know, to have that many mixers, producers, and masters on an album, as well as Michael Guerra producing it himself. You know, it's phenomenal. The amount of heads that would have gone into this insane, massive project. The fact that it has 26 songs as well is outrageous. Was it released with the 26, the double track originally? Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, man, it's just unbelievable. I mean, Michael himself is doing vocals, guitars, samples, sounds, which is could be anything. He could be, rubbing his head against the wall and recording it, you know, that kind of way, like loops or you never know what kind of. I could just imagine him, you know, because I love picking up noises and thinking, oh, that's a nice sound. I'd like to record that, but I don't actually go and do it most of the time. You know what I mean? Like you bang the wall or scratch the wall or something, like, oh, that could be like 2 minutes of the opening of this track. Like, it's amazing. Like, you know, there's guitar players, you know, there's loads of percussion and vibraphones and it's just an amazing lineup. I'd be here all day if I was to list them all off, but it's absolutely amazing. But the cool thing is that, you know, it's amazing for me when I hear an album that has been critically acclaimed that I've not heard of. Usually I would have heard something or bits and pieces. I suppose it might be the fact that it was during the 90s and I was very focused on a certain type of band at the time in the 90s, which these might have just gone a little bit over my head at the time. Very much into the grunge scene, obviously. That kind of like took control of it really. But it's amazing to know that there was bands still in the grunge-esque vibe, you know, but still experimenting at the same time. It's so cool and interesting. So the critical reception that I found from professional ratings was Terrorizer gave it 5 stars, which is really cool. You know, being a big metal, hardcore metal, they actually put it at the top 100 albums of the 90s, which is it's a really sick, you know, because you know there's so many good albums in the 90s. Alternative Press, another good one, gave it 5 out of 5, and All Music said it's the best album ever, and they gave it 4.5 out of 5. So, you know, it just goes to show, like, now we're listening to it going, oh, that's insanely ahead of its time. It's amazing how they produce such a massive, like you said, Magus Opus. But the fact that it was back in '96, but yet it's not just getting the kind of the love that it deserves years later, which happens to a lot of albums. It actually got the love at the time, which is really nice to see, you know, that kind of way. But you know, going on to the next track, Volcano. Oh, that's the one with the dance song. That's the dancey song. Sorry. I don't know how to pronounce this next one. Number 8, Mellow Thumb. Mellow Thumb. Python. But that's just like it is just the epitome of sound collage. Like it's just layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. It's just humongous sounding. And I'm when I listen to music, I kind of I annoy myself because I have to pick out every single piece of instrumentation on a track. I can't just listen to it as a vibe, and I kind of envy you in a way because when you listen to music, you get the whole sense of the song, and you know, and you feel it and stuff like that. I have to be fucking picking shit out, like, and sometimes I can cut that off, but like it's really annoying. I think it's just something I learned in music college because they were baiting into us to try and learn how to pick instruments out. Um, but yeah, it's almost impossible to pick things out on this album because you never know what fucking sound it is. It could be anything, like I said earlier. Like, so yeah. But the next track, all lined up, has these lovely distant pianos. It's funny the attention to detail on this album is outrageous. Like, you know, there's all these bells and talking voices and loops, and that I love. One of my favorite recording techniques is distance recording. It's like having a giant room and recording right at the very back of the room, and it gives this like this distance, even though it's you know it's on a track and it's mixed in levels with everything else because of the way it was recorded in like in a room mic from afar. It gives this lovely like the only way you could really achieve that otherwise would be the human ear to hear something like pink noise or white noise in the background. It's amazing. It's a lovely technique. They have pulled out all the stops on this. Like it's just excellent kind of stuff. I don't know. My only thing I probably said this already. Like it's a phenomenal album. It's phenomenal. It's the strangest album I've ever heard. But there's so many bits that match up with things that I've heard before. But then I'm expecting it to do something that it doesn't. You know, like there's one track there where they have like a tala harpa. It's like it probably isn't though. This is the thing. It probably is just him with a violin bow on like a string on a plank of wood. I don't know what what it could be, but it sounds like a traditional Viking instrument. And I'm expecting it to go into what because I'm so used to listening to it. Like you can imagine it's like some bodhrán or some shamanic drum or something. But all of a sudden the synthy loop thing comes in and it's just crazy, man. Like you never know what to expect listening to this. And 26 songs. I've only listened to the album twice. Usually I get about 3 or 4 listens of an album and I know it inside out. This one, I feel like I only scratched the surface on 2 listens, you know, and like I mean intense you know, listening. You know, so that's crazy. Like I think that was a Surrogate too, the song I'm talking about with the Talaharpa sound. Like it definitely is not a Talaharpa because I'd be very surprised to see that Mike Aguirre sitting in the studio with this, you know, 3 string is, you know, ancient instrument. Like he probably made it. I don't know. Maybe he rubbed his tongue off a piano string or something. I don't know. But yeah, man, it's just so interesting. Like,
You know, before we start moving on, just like the reason I discovered this band initially, it's just like because I have such a experimental taste naturally. Like I'm always trying to discover different vibes, different sounds, and I think I remember searching like something like albums that give you chills, albums that do whatever, and then this album came up like the most in all the searches, and I was like, oh okay, I'll give it a try, and then obviously the rest is history. But you know what's interesting is that the one thing that I find so impressive about this is because you know how do I put this into words? It's like you can have a band, you know, and I know there are some bands out there. It doesn't make them bad per se, but there are some bands out there who, when they think about making a terrifying album or a scary album, they will have everything loud 24/7. All the lyrics will be like, I'm gonna murder you, rip your intestines out, you know, like real death metal grindcore shit, and you know, and then do tons of growls and tons of real cheap sampling and and just like and expect that to work as a shock factor. But compare it to being scared. This album, there isn't a lot of there's a bit of cursing, but it's like it's not the most graphic album in the world lyrically. It's not upfront graphic. He's not, yeah, there is moments here and there, but for the whole 26 tracks, it's not that brutal the whole time. But what makes it scary, what makes it brutal is the sounds, it's the production, it's the way it's laid. It's like, apparently someone said once, a movie critic from the 60s or something said once, apparently if you want to avoid being scared at the movies, block your ears, not your eyes. I don't know who said that. Someone said that. And apparently because the sound is what gets you. It's the fucking sound and the way the instruments are played, the sound effects. And I think this is the perfect representation because it sounds fucking terrifying, but they're not really talking about that much gruesome stuff. I mean, yeah, there's that live song, Blow Your Brains Out. But like, it's just like, and there are creepy moments, but when you think about it, for example, the voice samples, a guy talking about working as a sex caller. Yeah, it's disturbing, but it's not. It's like it's just a dude talking about his job, and then you have a guy talking about how he got how he lost his sight. All this stuff. You could have a normal conversation, I guess, about it in normal real life, but like the way they add it in at the specific moments, specific times, it makes it creepy. And so I think that's a real distinction between a band that thinks being scary is using shock and controversy and like the shock factor compared to a band like this who actually makes an album sound terrifying, in its aesthetic, in its essence. Yeah. So in my opinion, that's just an interesting distinction. I like that because there are some bands out there like, oh look, I made a real fucked up album, but it's just grindcore for 10 minutes. It's like, oh yeah, like yeah, it's fucked up, but not for the reason you want it to be. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just a weird distinction. My 2 cents, I thought I had to throw in there.
I felt like we needed a button there that went, ooh.
I'll probably add it in, like I added it in the editing. I'm so excited for the thumbnail of this album because I'm behind a circle. I want to be like, like
yeah. Nice.
All right, so let's get to the promotion segment of the podcast. Do you want to go first or me?
Yes, I'll go first. And I just want to thank actually all the bands we played with in Bennigan's the other night. The venue were very, very nice. They made us feel very welcome. Bennigan's in Derry. Lovely spot. We had Blurred Reality, big shout out to the boys, stellar set, and String Cut Puppets, absolutely killer. So we had a brilliant night there. We're playing on Saturday night in the Baller in Ballybuffet, and if anybody's looking for some new music, we have this lovely album, which we will send one your way as well, Corbin.
I was about to say.
Yeah. But I just have to wait for the boys to get over here and we'll sign it and put some lovely extras on it for you. But yeah, so I'm just going to do some self-promotion this week because we are so close to hitting our tour. So we've got 2 more shows and then we're on the road. So it's all focused on that at the minute. But yeah, shout out to everybody else that I love.
I'm curious, and I guess this is taking things to a bit of a more personal level for a bit. But when you're going on tour, especially unfamiliar places, do you ever have any I guess not side effects, but because like for example, for me, and this is a bit of a sneak peek into my personal life, but for me, like if I'm nervous about an interview, or if I'm nervous about a podcast feature, or if I'm just nervous in general. Long drives somewhere I've never been before. Anything. If I'm nervous, I get really bad stress spells.
Yeah, right.
And like I have to go toilet 1,000 times in the morning just to be ready for whatever I'm facing. Do you have anything like that? Like when you're nervous?
Yeah, I just need a bit of I need to be my own energy for a few months. The boys know this. I go off for like, half an hour by myself before I do like say play like a big kind of gig. I just need to be in my own energy for a while and just like ground myself, and if I don't get that, then it could go hairy like, but I don't know. So I'd like a tranquil little moment by myself. So I might just, I don't know, sit in my bunk on the tour bus, just kind of like
Fair
yeah,
enough. Nice. Fair enough. Well,
yeah,
that's good. I'm glad because
yeah,
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 it can be hellish for me sometimes. It's like
yeah, right.
but I pull through. I always pull through.
Yeah, yeah, you do
I never let
it.
it stop me. But so before I start, so we've started a new formula here. So we're gonna, well, I mean, I guess I will be. You'll be doing the whole time, but for me, I'm gonna start doing Ren style and highlighting one or two different promotion sponsors every episode, but I'll make sure to feature all of them at the end on a sick ass riff that the boy Lewis made for us. He remixed it. Thank you so much. This is the first official thank you. Thank you. It was sick, and it's going to be featured at the very end. Our outro now, and it'll list all the sponsors. So don't think because we haven't mentioned you that we forgot about you. You will be at the end if you're not mentioned in whatever episode we're talking about. So firstly, I want to mention Viking Trinkets. Ooh, so, as I said on last week's episode, they sent out the. Come to think of it, last week I said it was the Major Hammer. It actually wasn't. I was mistaken. It looks very similar. So what they did send me is, and don't worry, I'll be editing this if it, if it takes long. The Binding of Finhir. How do you pronounce it? F
Yeah,
N I. Yeah.
it's the binding of Fenrir, but
Yeah.
I find it interesting. It's like because it's like the Fenrir would be the binding up here, but then it's a Milner hammer,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a cool mix. Like,
Yeah, well, that's the one I got. What Ren said. It's 6. So as you can see, I'm wearing it right now. I'll be doing. I'll be making an actual professional promotional thing soon. But in the meantime, this is what it is. You get the You can't quite see it, but there's two wolves connecting. Two wolf heads connecting it. Stainless steel. Nice weight to it. It's quite heavy. I wear it 24/7 because it's a bitch to take off. But 24/7, I love it. And we don't have sponsors on here that we don't really like. So you don't have to worry about any of that shit. It is pure quality. Go get yourself a product. Most of the stuff on here are on sale. This one was originally $119, but is now $59, which is ridiculous. It's got five stars, 10 comments, because it's, not a bad review yet. I'm sure all this stuff is great. Obviously, in the future, we'll be getting more stuff from them. But if you want to get your own stuff from them, go to vikingtrinkets.com. And when you're about to purchase whatever you're purchasing, go to the promo code and put in SMP10 for 10% off your order. And please do it, not just for our sakes, just for your sake, because this stuff is grand. It is amazing stuff. SMP10, like Ren's shady photo you can't even see says.
that's it. It says it. It says it.
SMP10, go check it out. You won't regret it. And this is proof. I'm running it right now. And trust me, you can. I don't know how. I'm not sure how for proof, but you can message anyone who I'm close to, and they can tell you I've been wearing it constantly since I got it. Shout out to Viking Trinkets. You guys are the best. And secondly, I want to shout out the Gas Digital Network. So Gas Digital Network is a subscription-based service full of a bunch of different shows and podcasts, about 30, I'm pretty sure, thousands of hours of content, all with their own humor style. You got Zach Wilde on his own show. You got wrestling podcasts. You got horror podcasts by the legendary comedian Zach Amico, who every midnight, I'm pretty sure every Friday at midnight, he watches horror movies live with his fans. I think that's a pretty cool idea. I've watched a few episodes. It's a great podcast. And of course, Legion of Skanks, my favorite podcast. 3 different comedians with 3 different mindsets. And they all come together for an hour and a half twice a week to pretty much laugh at stuff that you shouldn't be laughing about. And and implementing freedom of speech, which, as you know, if you listen to a podcast, is very important. So yeah, go check them out. Gas Digital Network, get your subscription, and with every new customer, there will be a code to get a free month or a discount. You just have to watch the Legion of Skanks podcast on YouTube to find out what that is. So go check it out, and yeah, the rest of you will be featured on the outro to show our appreciation.
Awesome. I'll just throw one more thing in about the trinkets. You know, if anybody that knows anything about me will know that I am an avid collector of everything Norse, everything you could possibly think of to do with Norse mythology. And I am waiting on a delivery myself of some lovely items that they're sending me too. So, you know, I will definitely be proudly wearing my really, really cool, because like I've dealt with, I'm endorsed by and ambassador for a lot of companies that do similar work, and these guys are absolutely brilliant, great professional guys, lovely products. So, you know, 100% on my end of that. So,
and I was just gonna say, before we go into our segment, I do want to say, because I only found this out like an hour ago, a few hours ago, but rest in peace to Stuart Anstis, who was the original guitarist for Cradle of Filth. So according to the current drummer, he has passed, and he worked on a lot of the early albums, Cruelty and the Beast, Dusk and Her Embrace, Cradle to Enslave. So a bunch of the classic early albums of Cradle. So I didn't know his name until now, but I was familiar with his work for sure, because he definitely gave a very distinct satanic gothic vibe that made Cradle what they are today. So yeah, rest in peace to him. Apparently he died at age 48. So I mean, it's just been a terrible year for metal or music, really. So rest in peace to him. Your work on Cradle of Filth and will not be forgotten, because they're still very close to my heart to this day. So rest in peace to you. Yeah. So with that tragic news behind us, it's time for our segment, which is none other than
Devil's Advocate.
I'm going to utilize having the circle for once. So, as is custom to the SAGAS podcast, I'm always going first. So that is what I'll start with. So, first thing, I'll start with the best track, which, I mean, you got 26 songs to choose from, and like they all, I think this is the same issue we had with Empath. It's like it's about sound. You take one track away, it's like what the analogy I gave. It's like taking away the buns from a burger. It doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, cool. The bun is just a bun, but it's needed for the burger, you know. So it's like the same deal applies. You know, you need the songs for the experience. But if I had to choose a best one, I'd probably have to either go with track 6, The Beautiful Days, or track 2, I Was a Prisoner in Your Skull. Now, track 6, only because it's just like it's like prime creepy on this album. It's just like you got those little voices. Beautiful day. I don't know. I don't understand what they're saying, but it's like loops, and then you got that creepy guy, I'm going to assume, who says about his sex. It's just like, if you haven't heard the track, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like really creepily done. It's just like the guy sounds like fed up with his life. He's just like, the dude sounds so like flat, like as in depressed, you know, fed up with everything. He's just like, his monotone expression makes it even more creepier. I guess there are the worst things when you think about it. Like, that's how he ends it, I think. And it's like, fucking hell, like you couldn't have made that sound any more depressing. And I love the depressingness of it. But track 2, I love it because of the mystery behind it. You got that whatever instrument it was playing 3/4 in, and then you have that guy who I originally thought was comedian Bill Hicks, late comedian, because he sounds similar to his, but I mean, at this point, it hasn't been confirmed who the hell he is, so I don't know. But it sounds like Bill Hicks. But regardless, the mystery behind it, the fact that, from what I can tell, it hasn't been revealed. That creepy a cappella flute thing. It's just like everything. Just like as soon as that part hits, I get chills, and then that guy talking. And the fact that it cuts off on the third example, it doesn't even finish it. It's just like it's like say everything about it is just creepy in the best way possible. So I love those two tracks for those reasons. For me, the worst track, and again, this is just you can't really pick because it's all about experience here, but is track 9 all lined up only because it kind of gave me like a I'm trying to like I don't really know how to describe it, but it kind of felt like the most how do I word this? Not basic because no song on here is basic, but just had this like synthy vocals, kind of like what the new Tool album sounded like. Kind of like, I mean, that album has its good moments too, of course, but like very kind of weird robotic slash synth voice, kind of like a really demented Daft Punk is what that voice sounds like to me. It's just like real, but it's just to me, it doesn't have the memorable features of the other tracks on here. And yet, but obviously I had to nitpick that because I love every song on here. But like when I really thought about it, I was like, yeah, this song doesn't do much for me. So yeah, those are my choices.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, like great tracks as well. I find it really hard to like this is probably one of the hardest to pick a favorite and a least favorite. Um, yeah, I have a few contenders here. I mean, Empathy was definitely a contender because it's got this cool kind of like smooth modern. I could imagine it being in like a cool modern gangster movie. The lyrics are quite dark as well. But that got pegged to the post by Hypo Girl, I think. I just love the creepy vocals on it. Like it's absolutely brilliant. Jarbo done really like feral witchy vocals, like really like oh man, if you were in a forest and that shit started, you would be fucking scared. Like if the lyrics are real spooky as well, like I love you more than my life, now you'll never escape. So it's kind of like yeah, I love you now, you're fucked and you're not getting away ever. So yeah, I I love a good creepy female vocal. Like going back to Demo Borgere, like I love that shit. Like it's
Gateways.
really cool. Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. So that's definitely my favorite track. I mean that bounced out at me as favorite track the minute I heard it because it's got a nice acoustic. It's actually the most structured song on the album as well. I think like there's a verse, chorus, first chorus kind of vibe off it. My least favorite track it's literally just because it's number 18 minus something. Um, it's missing something. Ah, see what is it there? It's minus something. No, it's the voice that's talking in it. I just find it very annoying. It's it's just annoying. That I mean the song it's got this lovely ethereal soundscape again, and I don't know. It's just certain uh I don't know. It's just the way the voice is. It could be the accent. I don't know what it is. There's something about it. I couldn't listen to it. It was the only thing. I was just like, no thanks. So, but like I swear, man, I was hard really. I just that's nitpicking. That's real bullshit nitpicking because it's an astonishing album and I would nearly be with you with Beautiful Days is a really, really cool track as well with the creepy vibe. And that's what I loved about. Um there's one track I wanted to talk about as well. I mean there's two tracks. There's Ominous and track number 13 had this really cool Radiohead-esque sad Tom York style. I can imagine like do you know what his vocals on this track are like Tom York, Frank Sinatra, and Morrissey all mixed into one. And it's just so cool, man. He's just got this like his he doesn't even overutilize his voice, like he doesn't sing. If I had a voice like that, I'd be singing on everything, every from the start to finish. You know what I mean? Very cool. But yeah, no, it was very cool. And there's another track that reminded me of something I studied in school was called Sea Changes. It's a music score by Raymond Dean, and it's just really like strangely orchestrated, kind of like the tempo and textures and the dynamics. It's this 3 note cell kind of vibe that he has. It's just really, really cool. Final Sacrifice. That was another really cool one. So, but yeah, no, I'm gonna stick with my 2 faves. Hypo Girl, anyways, my definite fave.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the same guy from Beautiful Days and Minus Change.
Yeah, right.
I think it's the same voice.
The Hypo Girl. Oh no, she's singing on Hypo Girl.
No, Minus Something and Beautiful Days.
Oh, is it the same voice?
I think it's the same guy.
Is it? Well, he sounded okay on the other one. I think it was just the certain twang you put at the end of certain sentences, like I don't know.
Because the guy talks like this. Yeah, I get it. I get you.
Yeah. You mentioned acid earlier on. I think a lot of this stuff would really, if you were to be like, dabbling in something, you'd definitely get sucked into this album a lot more. Like it's very trippy and trance-like.
Well, you without making it obvious, audience, you know what's gonna happen when we review Dark Side of the Moon. We're not gonna be fucking. Let's just say we're not gonna be sober, because you can't listen to that album any other way. That is.
Well, was it the Berserkers used to take magic mushrooms back in the day, wasn't it? Like so.
That was a fantastic album. Anyway, this was a great episode. Now, so Ren, what album are we covering next week?
Next week, we're going to do something a bit more our lane of normality is Slipknot, All Hope Is Gone. So we get to sing about Corey's bitchin' vocals and Tom's amazing guitar playing and whatnot.
This would be a second time we're talking about Corey.
It is, yeah. But it's actually, to get to talk about Joey's drums, I'm looking forward to that. So cannot wait.
And you should know how fucked up of an album this must be if we just call Slipknot Normality.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Like,
well, no, it's been good. Good episode. Back to normal finally, because last week special episode, but yeah, we're back. So this has been good, and as we always say here on SAGAS, same time, same place, or something.
Or something.